Welcome to another episode of Rare Connection, the podcast dedicated to connecting patients with rare conditions, educating medical professionals and the general public, and hopefully finding treatments and clinical trials for the 95% of those who do not have any FDA-approved treatment. I'm your host, Joanna, and today we have a truly inspiring story to share. Our guest this week is Shari, a resilient and passionate individual who has faced incredible challenges and emerged stronger than ever. Shari was diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma, a rare brain tumor, which was successfully removed. However, during the surgery, she suffered a stroke, and which led to a 9-month hospital stay. Despite these hardships, Shari made a remarkable recovery and returned to her care and as a marine biologist, as a marine biology teacher. But Shari's journey didn't stop there. She channeled her experiences into founding a nonprofit organization called Impact of Empathy. The organization is dedicated to providing empathy training services, fostering strong connections among friends and coworkers, clients, and patients by institutionalizing empathy. Join us as we delve into Shari's incredible story of perseverance, recovery, and her mission to make the world a more empathetic place. This episode you won't want to miss.
Thank you.
Sure. Can you share with us the moment you were diagnosed with an acoustic neuroma? What went through your mind?
Oh my God. This was back in 2006, and I had been feeling dizzy and nauseous for months. And finally my doctor sent me to another doctor, another specialist who sent me for an MRI, and then they found the brain tumor. I was, astounded and didn't think they'd find anything. But a big part of me was thinking, finally, that dizzy and nauseousness will be over because I'll get the thing. They found something wrong, and they'll take it out, and I'll be fine. And that's what they told me, that I'd be in the hospital for a short time, and I'd be fine. So I really thought that, I'd be fine. I thought this was a bump in the road, and that I'd be fine. I never imagined that it would be a forever thing.
Not quite what you got into.
No, I really thought that my pain was soon going to be over. I was relieved.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the immediate challenges you endured and during your treatment?
Well, they had told me that I'd be in the hospital for 5 to 10 days, and that I'd be fine afterwards. And when that became longer, because I literally could not breathe, so I could not move, I couldn't do anything for myself. So I had 2 little kids at home that had to be taken care of by most of my family and by family, which were awesome. My family really stepped up. My family and friends really stepped up and really took over my life because I, checked out of my life for 9 months. I couldn't think about anything, didn't take care of my house, my dogs, my kids. Didn't mean to put them last. My kids, my house, my dogs. Couldn't take care of anything. So my family and friends had to do everything for me, just really taking care of my whole life. So that was probably the biggest challenge, just my absence, which, at the time wasn't a challenge to me because I wasn't really aware of what was going on, but it was a challenge to everyone around me that they had to take care of my life for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do notice from your previous Zooms and things that you've been on, your speech has gotten a lot better.
Oh, thank you. Sure. Yes, I do work on that a lot. Just every time I talk, I work on my speech and just trying to make sure that I'm clear and louder.
Yeah. I've actually been through a couple strokes myself, and
yeah.
I practice a lot of tongue twisters afterwards.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, anything that gets your mouth moving. Mm-hmm. And actually, if I can tell one story about a speech therapist that, I'm a marine biologist, and she noticed on the wall of my room that I had a poster of whales. So instead of having me say, those tongue twisters or random words from a newspaper, she had me recite the names of the whales on the poster in my room. And that made me say the scientific names, which again are tongue twisters in themselves. So, doing that just got me, I didn't say them perfectly at first, although she had no idea what the right way was, or it didn't really matter, but it got me, realizing that I did still remember all these things, and it really gave me hope that one day I'd be back to being a marine biologist.
Yeah.
So I'd love to tell that story, because that was an awesome way to use my own passion as a way to motivate me.
It was a good idea that they came up with that. But you talk about a lot about in the book about when life gives you lemons, make cranberry juice.
The book right here if you want to see it.
Yeah.
When life gives you lemons, make cranberry juice.
I actually have it too.
Oh, good.
And you talk about a lot about the about being able to work with you working with syllables, and in the book that they were using a little bit at a time. Your stroke was a lot worse than mine, but it.
Yeah, the stroke was pretty bad. It made me not be able to breathe, so I ended up having a tracheotomy to be able to breathe.
Yeah. So I did have G-tube. I mean, not G-tube. Nasal tube, but I didn't have the swallowing problems that a lot of people have.
I did not swallow for 6 months after my stroke. So that's what the speech therapist works on too. A lot on swallowing. Like they swab your uvula, the little thing that hangs down the back. They swab that with lemon flavored swabs to get you to swallow. They worked a lot on that swallowing reflex, trying to get that back.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that they tried?
Just the lemon swabs, and just trying them. You really have to be taught to swallow, which is an odd thing to have to learn because it's something you just do instinctively when you're born. Mm-hmm. So you had to be taught to use those muscles and swallow. And the problem is your vocal cords. I mean, I didn't realize your vocal cords are sewn into your swallowing reflex, but your vocal cords have to be able to flap. They're like little flaps. They have to be able to flap and close in order for you to swallow and speak. So it was a lot of just exercising those muscles again.
Yeah.
And getting them to work.
Can you describe the stroke you experienced during the tumor removal surgery and its impact on your recovery process? We talked a little bit about that just now.
Right. Well, I mean, the stroke was on my left side, and it affected my left cranial, my left nerves to my face. That's why my face isn't moving as much on my left side. But it also affected my right side. My whole right side of my body doesn't feel hot or cold or sharp, but it's more coordinated. Whereas my left side, I feel hot and cold and sharp, but it's weaker and not as coordinated. So it affected different sides of my body in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But, what I learned is that there's always muscles that you can get stronger, and that, nerves, while they can't regrow, they can find new pathways around damaged areas. So you continue to improve, pretty much forever if you keep working on it.
Yeah, a lot of people do give up after a stroke, so it's great that you did.
Right. Well, a lot of doctors tell you that you can't get better after a year. That you see most of your improvement in a year, and then you're not going to really get any better after that. And after a year, I was not even walking on my own, and now I can walk, pretty much as long as I want to. So it's that if you tell patients they're not going to get better, they're going to stop trying after a year.
Mm-hmm.
And after a year, I did not stop trying because other people told me you can keep getting better.
Right.
So if anybody out there is listening, I do want you to know you can keep getting better.
Yeah.
Just keep on working at it.
So I have found, that doctors tend to give you the worst case scenario.
Right.
And so I've proved doctors wrong a couple times myself.
Yeah.
But because I was never expected to walk again.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I know I go to a stroke support group, or at least I used to before COVID, and there was one person who couldn't say anything but "my name is Sam," and you couldn't shut him up after a while.
Yeah.
There was one person who was told that he would be a vegetable for the rest of his life. Most people, if I ever become a vegetable, put me in 9 items or less aisle and check me out. I don't know about that anymore. If you get up and go to a stress group, you're a pretty lively vegetable.
Right. I mean, doctors tell you what most outcomes are, but by telling you that, they're also predicting that your outcome is going to be bad. Yeah. So they're giving you permission to give up on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I would never say give up on yourself. Just there's always something that can get stronger, even if it's just a little muscle in your pinky. Something gets stronger.
Mm-hmm. How did you find the strength and motivation to push through your 9-month hospital stay?
I mean, the biggest thing, obviously, I wanted to come home to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids were living. They were 12 and 8 at the time, so they were living without me. They went to live with their dad. They went to their aunts for a while, then they went to live with their dad. They were bumped around a bit. And then, my biggest motivation was I had to get home to them. Secondly, I had to get back to work. That was my biggest thing. Once I got home, was I wanted to get back to work. And when I went back to work, I teach at a community college in here. When I went back to work, I couldn't do it in the same way. I couldn't, stand up like this in front of a class 3 times a week and give a lecture. What I could do is I could teach online. So I went back to work in a different way, and I taught in a different way, but I taught the same things, just in a different way. So you find ways to be your best self, and I think that's the message. You got to be your best self. You have resources that you can use, and that are good things about yourself. You have to find those and express those.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what.
Yeah. Let's see. What role did your support system play during your recovery?
Well, my friends and family, obviously took care of my whole house while I was in the hospital. But even after I came home, I wasn't driving, so I had friends drive me to outpatient therapy appointments and take me to the grocery store and things like that, and help take care of my kids. So I needed a lot of support from my friends and family once I got home, too. And, my kids, even though they were young, they became a lot of my support. They would do laundry, they would cook. They had to do all of the household things that I wasn't able to do anymore. So they did learn from a pretty young age to do things for themselves. And for me. They helped me, too.
How did you manage, so we're moving on to your professional life and transition.
Okay.
How did you manage to return to teaching marine biology after, especially life-altering experience.
Well, as I said, that speech therapist really gave me the hope that I'd be able to go back to being a rheumatologist, because she really brought it home that my mind was still there. I still knew the names of these whales. I still knew their scientific names, which, admittedly, most people don't memorize scientific names of everything, but I still knew them. So when it came time to go back to work, I knew that I couldn't do it the same way, but I knew that my mind was still there and I could still do it. My heart was still there. I still loved whales. I still loved animals. I still loved teaching. I just had to do it in a different way. So really working with my school and friends at work, being able to help me get back to work. When I first went back to school, I actually I wrote a grant that allowed me a semester of being there just to learn how to navigate the campus and figure out how to get around and how to do labs, because I still taught labs in person, how to do that with my limited capabilities. And I did find that students are very willing to help you. So I would tell my students, I need you guys to carry the microscopes over because they're heavy and I didn't want to drop one. So making them do more. And people are very willing to help you if you ask for help. And that's the hard thing to do, but, it became part of my life. Just, I'm not sure about doing this by myself, so you need to do it, or can you help me? And just things like that, just asking for help or asking for help from colleagues if you need help. And people want to help. They don't know what to do. So asking for specific things are, it's helpful to me because they help me, but it's also helpful to them because they get to help. And that's what they want to do.
Yeah. So, I've actually had teachers tell me, if you don't ask, you won't get it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. If you do ask, you might not get it, but if you don't ask, you for sure won't get it.
Yeah.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
In those first 24 hours, let's start there. What does that look like?
Well, I think the first 24 hours actually starts almost 9 months before, when you have your relationship with your OBGYN and you're doing all of that preparation and lead up to delivering your baby. Things that need to be discussed prior to delivery involve the mom's healthcare a lot. Has mom gotten all of the routine healthcare she needs? That's things such as vaccines, prenatal screenings, prenatal ultrasounds, and then also some decisions to be made about what mom wants to do right after baby's born.
What adjustments or accommodations did you need to make in your professional life post-recovery?
Teaching online was big, because at the time when I first went back to work, my speech wasn't anywhere near where it is now. So it was hard to speak, especially loud. So I had like a microphone in my lab so students could hear me. I could talk a little bit louder that way. And just, teaching a lot of all lectures online. And, I still had the ability to use my computer. And not only that, I liked using my computer. So I was able to use what resources and passions that I had to, apply to my career and coming back to work. So just doing that. And going whale watching again was a tough one. Because, I could barely walk, and I had to walk on a dock that was moving and get on a boat that was moving. And, I couldn't go by myself. My daughter would go with me and make sure that I didn't fall anywhere. And, it was challenging, but I did it. And I got out there whale watching again and was able to take pictures again and, doing things you still love to do. And since I love my job and my career, I think the whale watching is part of my job. So just being able to incorporate that into my life and keep on doing the things I love was key. Coming back was return to work.
So, Impact of Empathy nonprofit. What inspired you to start Impact of Empathy?
Well, the nonprofit arm of this is actually called Lifetime of Impact, and you can find it at lifetimeofimpact.com. And what I do with Lifetime of Impact is I go out and talk to students of the healthcare profession and go into their classrooms and give them tips on connecting to their patients by expressing empathy. And I tell them a lot of my stories, which, some are good, like that speech therapist, and some are not so good. And, ways that doctors or other medical professionals did not show empathy when they treated me. And, and just the importance of showing empathy and how much more cooperation you get from your patients if you show empathy. And, giving them all of my perspectives, and that's where Lifetime Impact comes in. Impact of empathy expands on that. And, I would say you need empathy in every situation and at every workplace. So through Impact of Empathy, I'm trying to get into a broader area of expressing empathy. Mm-hmm. And I would like to be in a hospital. So if anybody out there works in a hospital, Impact of Empathy would love to come and be part of your onboarding program and really show your new hires, not that how to have empathy, I'm assuming they'll have empathy, but ways to express it that are quick, easy, and get you an immediate connection to patients. Mm-hmm. And that's so important.
Yeah. Can you explain what Impact of Empathy training service and our services are, and why they are important?
Well, through Impact of Empathy, I go out and do workshops with groups of anybody. I think the groups of healthcare professionals or I've done groups of students, groups of, co-workers, and really I do workshops that give them a little bit of a taste of what it's like to have certain conditions. If they're healthcare related, I give them a taste of what it's like to have sorry, I'm reaching for something here. To have a constricted airway, I actually make them breathe through a straw as part of my thing, and just by breathing through the straw, and I make them hold their nose that they're not cheating, and then it gives them a little bit of a taste of what it's like to have a constricted airway. And then I explain to them that, and things they already know, but they maybe don't think about, that their patient who has a constricted airway is also, scared, in pain, wondering why this happened to them. All of the end, and you're their stranger coming into their room trying to stick a tube up their nose. And, why would they let you do that? That's painful. So, getting their immediate connection is super important in getting your patients to cooperate with you and let you do that invasive medical procedure you need to do.
Yeah, I've always thought the doctors should have to spend a week in a wheelchair.
Right, and things like that. And I make them hold up their hand, and I tell them when they can put it down to give them a sense of what it's like to not have control over something. Mm-hmm. And that not having control. How can you get? And then we talk about how they give their patients self-control. So my workshops are a lot of back and forth, a lot of them, doing these activities, telling you how it made them feel, and then coming up with some ideas for how they can connect to their patients immediately. Mm-hmm. And I give them ideas of how people connected to me immediately, and then they can come up with their own ideas too. And I've heard from people years after my workshops that said they, still use what they learned from me, and they go out and, use this on patients, and it does work. They do get connections to patients. And this can be connections to anybody. You get greater connection to people if you show empathy. And that's what I do.
Yeah. How do you believe that institutionalizing empathy can change the dynamics of workplaces and healthcare settings?
Totally. Institutionalizing it, making it part of your brand identity is going to make you a better place to work. It just is. It's going to be from the top down, where if the supervisors are showing empathy to the workers are you're going to work harder for them. So it's going to be an overall better company if it's a nice place to work. I mean, you see that on reviews of workplaces all the time. That workplaces that show empathy to their staff, and you have the reverse empathy. You might show empathy to your supervisor too, and it's just going to be a better place to work. So institutionalizing means from human resources on down. You know, you don't have to be nobody has to be the one who brings the certain one who brings down the hammer. You know, you can criticize and you can correct behavior in a positive way by still showing empathy. And that's, you know, what we'll talk about in these workshops with the impact of empathy.
Yes. Can you share a success story or a moment that highlights the impact of your nonprofit work?
I would say when students come up to me, you know, years later, and they say that they had a patient who, you know, couldn't speak and couldn't communicate at all, but they knew that he could hear them because he was showing signs of fear, even though he couldn't communicate at all. So they still talked to him as if he could hear, and they treated him as if he could hear and if he was aware. Because I did tell them that, you know, when I couldn't communicate at all, some medical professionals assumed I couldn't, you know, understand them or hear them. And I mean, I write stories about them in my book, so obviously I understood them and remembered them. But, you know, that's the most heartwarming thing, when they tell me that they remember things and that they use the things that I've, you know, shared with them. And, you know, just that they take it seriously. They take the importance of expressing empathy seriously and practice it.
Moving on to the book. Let's see. Tell us about your book. When life gives you lemons, make cranberry juice.
Right. Well, the title of this book came across when people were telling me things like, you know, it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger. You need to smile more, be more positive. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. People said those things to me, which I didn't really appreciate because they're just, you know, cliches. So when I went to write my book, I did a twist on that. When life throws you lemons, make lemonade. And same when life throws you lemons, make cranberry juice. But what that means is that everyone knows, you know, life's lemons are these sour things, bad things that are happening to you. They could be big things like having a stroke. They could be little things like your car won't start. Or you stubbed your toe. It could be anything. But the cranberries in your life are those little sweet things. They're so easy to overlook, but they're there if you look for them. And what my idea is that you don't push your lemons under a rug and turn them into something else, but you can put them up on a shelf and put them aside for a little bit and look for and accept cranberries into your heart. And by accepting those cranberries into your heart, it'll change your frame of mind and you will be able to deal with your lemons. So it's not erasing your lemons, it's putting your lemons away for a little bit and coming back to them later. And then you're better able to deal with them. So when life throws you lemons, make cranberry juice means, you know, put your lemons aside, accept some cranberries, and then when you're in a better frame of mind, then go back and deal with your lemons. They'll still be there. Your problems are still going to be there, I promise. You just need to take a break from them.
Not the easiest thing to do.
It's not, but it works. And it's worked with some people with some pretty bad lemons, and it still works. Because they're still there.
Yeah. You see, we tend to remember the negative instead of the positive.
Right. But it's okay to put the negative on a shelf, go listen to a favorite song on the radio or on, you know, wherever you listen to music. Go listen to some positive music. And then go back and deal with your lemons. And you could take a break. The break could be 5 minutes. The break could be a day. But any kind of break that allows you to reframe your mind, you're going to be able to go and deal with your lemons better.
So what message do you hope readers take away from your book?
Well, the updated version of my book, because I did write this first in 2010, and then I updated it in 2020. So the updated version has more of my mantras that I live by every day, every day. So mantras like focus on what you can change, do the best you can with the resources that you have, and then keeping in mind that we all have resources, maybe not financial, maybe not physical, but other resources. Modify your goals, but stay true to yourself, which is what I did when I went back to teaching. I modified the way that I taught, but I stayed true to myself by teaching the same classes. And don't be afraid to do something new and difficult, which is pretty much what I do every time I go whale watching or leave the house. You're trying something new and difficult. So, I think taking away from my book is don't give up. Keep on trying, and don't be afraid to modify those goals. Like, you don't have to do the exact thing that you wanted to do, but you can do it. You can do a similar thing, but modified in a modified way, and don't be afraid to do that. So that would probably be the biggest takeaway: is just don't give up on yourself or on your friends if you have a friend going through a hard time.
So how did you modify things when you were going through this?
Well, I modified my teaching because I taught online. I modified. I mean, the way I do everything is modified. The things I don't even realize are modified. I do a workout every day on Zoom. It's like a CrossFit class for people with disabilities called Staying Driven Fitness. So if anybody wants to look that up, it's called Staying Driven. It's with Stephanie Hammerman Roach, and she teaches a class pretty much using CrossFit ideas, but it's on Zoom. So I work out every morning to this class on Zoom. So I have that modification. I have a stationary bike that I use that is pretty much great for me. It's one that I can get onto and get off of really easily. I have a trike that I can ride because I cannot ride a bike. So a lot of things are modified to be able to go out and do things that I enjoy doing. I found places to go. I don't go on the beach because walking on sand I need help, but if I want to go by myself, I can walk on sidewalks next to the beach. So I found ways to continue going to the beach. I work with a nonprofit beach organization here in Pacifica that I do things for, and I help them in ways that are not going on the beach and picking up trash, because that's not something that I can do. So being able to offer whatever skills I do have is a huge thing, and it makes you feel useful. You can do things the way that you can do things. Everybody has resources. Find your own resources and offer them. Find the resources that someone else has and appreciate them. And that's, what I'm really modifying. And that's the biggest outlook change, I think.
Yeah. How was writing your book helped you in your personal life, in your personal journey, and of having having empowerment?
Writing the book was an awesome experience because it was very cathartic. It was very, pouring out my heart to the computer. But then once I decided to make it into a book, I, gave myself a word limit to hit every day, so I had to write a certain number of words a day. But also it makes you look at your life in a different way when you're going to make it a book that you want other people to read. You can't just be negative and just, complain all the time. You have to look at every side of it. So the way the book is organized, which I think is I like it, the people might not like it, doesn't matter. But the way the book is organized is that every chapter is from a different perspective. So one chapter is all about the medical perspective. One chapter is about rehab. One chapter is about the emotional journey. So each chapter is written through a different lens and a different perspective. And each perspective makes me look at stories that I remember that are both negative and positive. And I think looking for those positive stories was very cathartic too, and helped me develop my lifetime impact and impact and empathy programs. Because it really makes you look at your life when you're reading a book about it.
So, insights here. What advice would you give to someone who has been diagnosed with an autistic neuroma?
An acoustic neuroma? First of all, if you're just diagnosed, I would say wait to read my book until after, because what happened to me is very rare. Chances are if you have an acoustic neuroma, you're going to be fine. And everyone else that I know that had an acoustic neuroma had no recovery time, but then they were fine. So don't assume that this is your life, that this is going to happen to you. But, go to a doctor, go to a couple of different doctors, see if there's any way to handle it. Maybe there's a non-surgical way to handle it. Look for that. And, find doctors that you trust and listen to them. My tumor was pretty large, so I had to have surgery. But I really, nobody expected this kind of outcome.
Yeah,
so
you actually show a picture of it in the book.
I do show a picture in the book, yes. Yeah, it's pretty big tumor, as I said. It's about the size of a golf ball. And it was, and I was having pretty severe symptoms, so yes, I had to have it out right away. But you should know that an acoustic neuroma is not cancerous. It's a benign tumor. So you don't have cancer. I didn't need any kind of chemotherapy or anything like that. But, the stroke complicated things, not the tumor itself. And I think that's important to know. This is not a death sentence. This is not a sentence to be disabled for the rest of your life. This is something, hopefully, everything will go on and it's just a bump in the road. And you go on afterwards and you're fine.
So, yeah, how can healthcare professionals better support patients with rare conditions?
Well, it did take me like 4 months for the doctor to take me seriously enough to send me to a specialist. I mean, my doctor told me, vertigo, it's going to go away by itself. There's nothing we can do. Go home. So I went home and I was like throwing up all the time. And I knew that it wasn't right. So after 4 months, finally they sent me to an ENT to get checked out a little bit more. And what they found is that a simple hearing test would have alerted them to some kind of problem. And I could have gotten diagnosed months earlier if they would have done a simple hearing test. So what I would say is, yes, when you hear hoofbeats, you want to see horses, but sometimes there are zebras. And listen to your patients. Sometimes the patient does know their body and know what's right and what's not right. And I think that you have to, it's tough because of the rare things are rare for a reason, but open your mind to listening to them. And if your patient is heard and is listened to, it's going to all be better. Don't just say, well, I'm not going to think about that because it's too rare. Sometimes the rare thing happens and you have to listen to your patients and listen to what they're telling you about what's going on.
Yeah. So, FYI, if you guys haven't seen one of these, there are 10,000 rare conditions. So likely somebody knows everybody knows somebody with one of them, if not multiples.
And actually, I do have a video series on YouTube called Impact of Empathy. So if you go to my YouTube page, the Impact of Empathy video series, I do interview somebody who also had a rare condition that was tough to diagnose, and that took, doctors did not want to believe her. And again, not believing your patient is a lot of times a mistake. You have to listen to patients.
So yeah, doctors get into this, I believe, I know everything kind of thing.
Well, they know what they learned in medical school.
Yeah, exactly.
I know they know more than that. Now, I know that they continue to read, but they're also sometimes jaded by a lot of false alarms and a lot of maybe patients who complained about something that wasn't true. But by getting to know your patients a little bit more, you're going to get to know whether they're, whether you can take their symptoms seriously or not. Mm-hmm. And you have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Let's see. What can the general public do to become more empathetic and supportive of those dealing with healthcare challenges?
One of the biggest things that I notice is that, especially if I'm in my wheelchair and somebody's pushing me, anybody who wants to come and talk to us will always talk to the person pushing me. And ask about me. They never talk directly to me. So I would say that one of the biggest empathetic things you can do is active listening. Looking somebody in the eye when you're talking to them and listening to them. Not thinking about what you're going to say, but just listening to them. And then speaking, again, directly to them. I mean, looking somebody in the eye when you're talking to them is so obvious, but so often not done. Especially if somebody has a disability, and it's so important. It's the best way to make somebody feel like you care and that you're heard, is looking them in the eye when you're talking to them.
Mm-hmm. This is reflection. Looking back on your journey, what has been your biggest lesson you learned?
The biggest lesson that I've learned. I mean, one of the big things is if you need help, ask for it. And, it's so often not done because it's so hard to ask for help. The other day, I was getting out of my friend's car, and she said, "Do you need help?" I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm fine." And then I got out and I fell. Well, I mean, it's funny because I didn't really hurt myself too badly, but, it's not a sin to say, yes, just be here just in case I'm going to fall. Because 99 times out of 100, I'll be fine. But she felt horrible being in that one position where she watched me fall from the other side of the car and couldn't do anything about it. So asking for help is not a bad thing. And that's probably the biggest thing to learn, is that if you need help, ask for it. If you want to be with people, ask to go out for dinner with somebody. Tell your friends what you need. They care about you and they want to help you, but they don't know what to do unless they've been in the exact situation, which they probably haven't been. They don't know what to do. So tell them what you need. And actually, I have advice: if you're a friend of somebody who needs help, offer something specific. Try to think of what they might need. They might need a ride to the grocery store. They might need dinner brought in. They might just need company. The way that I interact with people and trying to get people to acknowledge me is a huge thing, because that's always been a huge thing. But getting, just trying to be part of that community and trying to be a useful part of that community is, the biggest thing. So just always looking for ways to be helpful. Even though I have some limited abilities, trying to be helpful to other people. And I'm not sure if that's all that different, because I've been a teacher for 30 years. I've always kind of tried to be helpful, but that's one way that, just trying to get back into being helpful after my stroke, and back into not being just that person who needs help from their friends, but can offer help to friends also. And that's a big transition, trying to go from, you don't want to be that needy, but if you're that needy person for a little while, it's okay. Mm-hmm. But I did try to eventually go back to being the one who can do things for people, give them rides to the airport now that I can drive again, do things for them. Mm-hmm. So that's a big thing.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Reconnection. Shari's story is a testament to the power of resilience, empathy, and the human spirit. If you're inspired by her journey, be sure to check out her book, When Life Gives You Lemons, Make Cranberry Juice.
It's on Amazon.
Yep. And let's say that. For those who prefer the Kindle version, that one is free. Also, I did notice on there.
It's free if you have Kindle Unlimited, then you get it for free, right? But definitely they're both on Amazon. I'd love to have you check out my book.
Yeah. So, that's kind of nice that you offer it free, because there's a lot of people who are blind to that's the only way they can do it.
Right. And if you're a member of Kindle Unlimited, which I am, then you can get, there's a lot of books for free on Kindle Unlimited. I like that.
Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rare Chef, where you can also find this podcast audio, and the audio only version will be up. It will be available tomorrow. There's also a Facebook group that's named after this, Rare Connection, and also a page on Facebook. Before we sign off, we want to share some important information. If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, please reach out for help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available 24/7 at 1-800-273-8255, where you can text hello to 741-741 to connect with a trained crisis counselor through the crisis text line. For more resources and support, visit Suicide Prevention Lifeline's website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Thank you again for tuning in. Stay connected, stay informed, and most important, stay empathetic. We'll see you next time on Rare Connection.